On a quiet autumn evening, the lamps of Willow Lake Mansion glowed like beacons across the water. But by morning, their mistress was gone, vanished without a trace. The telegram had arrived just as the afternoon train pulled into Willow Junction. Detective Richard Hale unfolded the crisp yellow slip, scanning the sharp strokes of the telegraph key. Urgent. Lady Charlotte Hamilton missing. Stop. Come at once. Stop. Sheriff Daniels. Hale tucked the paper into his coat pocket and stepped onto the platform. The air smelled of wet leaves and wood smoke, the kind of autumn chill that crept into your bones. Beyond the station, the lake shimmered pale under the setting sun, and across its surface, high on a wooded bluff, the silhouette of Willow Lake Mansion loomed. Lady Charlotte Hamilton. The name was well known in these parts. Daughter of old steel fortune, young widow of a shipping magnate, and patroness of the arts. A woman of society, charm, and, if whispers in the papers were to be believed, scandal. And now, gone. Sheriff Daniels was waiting with his hat pulled low, a man whose face carried lines like weathered leather. "Glad you came quick, Hale," he said. "We've trouble on our hands." Lady Charlotte vanished sometime after midnight. Her maid swears she went to her room. But come morning, no trace. Bed untouched. Clothes still hanging. Carriage in the stable. Just gone. Hale climbed into the sheriff's automobile, a sturdy Ford that rattled down the lane toward the lake. "Any signs of a struggle?" "None. That's the devil of it," Daniels muttered. "No broken lock, no footprints but her own. Yet she's nowhere in that house." The mansion greeted them with lanterns burning bright against the dark. Built of gray stone, it seemed more fortress than home, with ivy clinging to its walls like secrets too long kept. Inside, servants whispered in corners, eyes wide with fear. At the head of the grand staircase stood Mr. Edwin Pierce, Lady Charlotte's cousin and estate manager. A tall man with silver hair and a polished manner, though his hand trembled slightly as he greeted Hale. "Detective," he said smoothly, "this is all a dreadful mistake. Charlotte is whimsical. Perhaps she slipped away to the city for a lark. You'll see." Hale studied him, catching the flicker of unease in his gaze. "Perhaps. But until she's found, every possibility must be weighed." They were led to Lady Charlotte's chambers. The room was immaculate. The four-poster bed neatly made, the perfume bottles untouched on the vanity. Yet Hale's sharp eyes caught details others missed. A chair slightly askew, as though someone had risen in haste. A cigarette butt crushed in the ashtray, though Charlotte was known not to smoke. A faint smell of lake water lingering by the balcony doors. He stepped onto the balcony, the chill air biting his cheeks. Below, the dark expanse of Willow Lake rippled, silver in the moonlight. A narrow path led down through the trees to a small boathouse at the water's edge. Hale's gaze lingered there. "Sheriff," he said slowly, "who has the keys to that boathouse?" Daniels frowned. "Only Charlotte herself. She kept a small skiff moored inside." The detective's eyes narrowed. "Then perhaps the lady left not by carriage or by foot, but by water." Behind them, a servant screamed. Hale whirled back into the room as the maid pointed, pale and trembling, to the wardrobe. The door hung slightly open. And inside, tucked among Charlotte's gowns, something gleamed. A pearl necklace, snapped, its string broken, beads scattered like tears across the floor. Either Lady Charlotte fled in a desperate hurry, Hale murmured, or she was dragged from this room against her will. The scattered pearls told a story of struggle, and the trail led down toward the silent waters of Willow Lake. Detective Richard Hale knelt beside the wardrobe, gloved hand brushing the fallen pearls. Their sheen caught the lamplight like frozen tears. A necklace torn suddenly, violently. He pocketed one bead for memory's sake, then rose, sharp eyes shifting to the balcony doors. "If Lady Charlotte walked away of her own will," he said, "she wouldn't leave jewels strewn like breadcrumbs. Someone forced her hand." Sheriff Daniels scratched his jaw. "But there's no sign of anyone else in the room. Floorboards don't lie, no extra prints, no muddy boots." Then the struggle was brief, quiet. Perhaps with someone she trusted enough to let near. Hale's voice was low, steady. Someone who knew the lake paths. The maid, still trembling, whispered from the corner. "She loved that necklace. She'd never let it break if she could help it." Hale nodded once. "Then the necklace speaks louder than words." They descended the grand staircase, past portraits of stern Hamilton ancestors glaring down from their gilt frames. The house was hushed but not calm. Whispers of servants spread like the rustle of dry leaves. At the back doors, the night air hit sharp and cold. Lanterns swayed in the sheriff's hand as they followed the winding path through the woods, leaves crunching underfoot. The storm from days before had left the ground soft, and Hale crouched more than once, studying impressions half hidden in mud. At last, the trees parted. The boathouse stood squat and silent by the water's edge, its wooden walls weathered silver by years of lake wind. Moonlight turned the water beyond into rippling steel. Hale tried the latch. Locked. Daniels frowned, but she alone kept the key. Or someone else found it, Hale murmured. With a twist of a pick from his pocket, the lock yielded. The door groaned open, spilling the scent of damp wood and engine oil. Inside, dust motes drifted in their lantern glow. The small skiff was gone. Only a coil of wet rope remained, dropped carelessly on the planks. And in the corner, half hidden under a tarp, Hale found a shoe, delicate, jeweled, unmistakably a lady's. Not the sort of thing one leaves behind for a midnight row, he said. Daniels bent low, brow furrowed. So she was taken across the lake? Hale's gaze swept the far shore, dark with pines. Perhaps, or perhaps something darker happened on the water. The sheriff shifted uneasily. You think she's? Hale cut him short. I think Lady Charlotte's fate lies out there. Alive or dead. A ripple disturbed the lake's glassy surface, though no wind stirred. Hale's eyes narrowed. Someone else has been here, and recently. Back at the house, as they returned up the path, the front door creaked open. A man stepped onto the porch, tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in traveling clothes dusty from the road. His expression was grim, his eyes darting about the scene with restless energy. Who's this? Hale asked. The innkeeper's voice carried from behind. That's Mr. Henry Blackwood, Lady Charlotte's fiancé. The man descended the steps quickly, voice edged with urgency. Where is she? Where's Charlotte? I've just returned from the city, they said she's missing. Hale studied him in the lantern glow. A fiancé appearing at midnight, when the lady of the house has vanished into the lake's shadow? Curious timing indeed. Mr. Blackwood, Hale said evenly, the lady you claim as bride-to-be is gone without a trace. Tell me, where were you on the night she vanished? When a bride-to-be vanishes, suspicion naturally falls upon the groom. And Henry Blackwood had arrived at Willow Lake with more questions than answers. Henry Blackwood stood rigid under the lantern light, fists clenched at his sides, his coat damp from travel. He was a striking figure, sharp jaw, dark eyes, a soldier's bearing. But Hale was less impressed by appearances than by inconsistencies. Where were you last night, Mr. Blackwood? Hale asked. His tone was even, but it left little room for evasion. In the city, Blackwood replied at once. I had business with Hamilton and Pierce Shipping. Charlotte knew I'd be back tonight. Ask anyone at the Grand Hotel. I checked out this afternoon, took the evening train. Sheriff Daniels exchanged a look with Hale. Convenient timing, your return, just as she disappears. Blackwood bristled. Are you accusing me, Sheriff? I loved Charlotte. Why would I harm her? Hale's eyes lingered on him, measuring. That's precisely what I intend to find out. Inside the mansion, Blackwood's presence threw the household into fresh disarray. Servants whispered in corners. The silver-haired cousin, Edwin Pierce, descended the stairs with a cool smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Well, Henry, Pierce said smoothly, your arrival is opportune. Perhaps you'll shed some light on our cousin's romantic escapades. Charlotte was always restless, always chasing excitement where it wasn't wise. Blackwood stiffened. Careful, Edwin, you've never approved of me. That much is clear. Pierce's brows rose, his smile sharpening. Approval isn't required, merely results. If you can't keep your fiancé in line. Hale cut between them, voice firm. Enough. This is neither a parlor quarrel nor a business meeting. Lady Charlotte is missing, and every minute wasted in bickering risks her life. The men fell silent, but the air between them crackled like a drawn wire. Hale turned to Blackwood again. You say you were in the city. I'll telegraph the Grand Hotel and verify. But tell me, did Charlotte know of your exact return? Or were you planning a surprise? Blackwood hesitated, then admitted, I sent her a note. Yesterday morning. Said I'd arrive by midnight. She should have been here to greet me. Hale absorbed this with care. A note. And where did you send it? To her private study, Blackwood said. She always kept her correspondence there. Hale's gaze sharpened. Then we must see that study. They climbed the staircase again, past the stern portraits, to a smaller chamber lined with bookshelves and a mahogany writing desk. Hale's trained eyes swept the scene, papers neatly stacked, a blotter fresh with ink stains, and a wastebasket half full of torn drafts. He rifled carefully, and there it was, a single folded note in a masculine hand. He read aloud, "Charlotte, I return tonight. Be ready. Midnight. Henry." Sheriff Daniels whistled low. "So she expected you." Blackwood's face hardened. "And she's gone. Do you see why I'm frantic, detective?" But Hale's eyes were on the desk, more precisely, the ashtray. He leaned closer. A cigarette stub, its paper ringed with lipstick. He lifted it between gloved fingers. "Curious," he murmured. Lady Charlotte was known not to smoke. So whose lips touched this? Pierce's voice carried smoothly from the doorway. "Perhaps, detective, Charlotte had habits you never knew. Or perhaps," his smile was thin, "our dear cousin entertained company she kept from all of us." The tension in the room coiled tight. Hale tapped the ashtray, scattering the stub into the tray. "One thing is certain, someone else was in this room with her. And until I find out who, no one here is free from suspicion." A lipstick-marked cigarette, a missing lady, and a stranger's presence in the study proved that the heiress was not alone on the night she vanished. Detective Richard Hale turned the cigarette stub between his fingers, its lipstick smear catching the lamplight. "A small clue, but a sharp one. Charlotte Hamilton never smoked," he said flatly. "That's been confirmed by her maid, her doctor, and the household staff. Which means this belonged to someone else. A woman." The room shifted uneasily at his words. The maid made the sign of the cross. Edwin Pierce folded his arms, that faint smile still tugging at his lips. Blackwood stiffened like a man ready to fight shadows. Sheriff Daniels cleared his throat. "So what are you sayin', Hale? That another lady visited here last night?" Hale set the stub back in the tray. "I'm saying Charlotte received a guest. One who didn't want her presence widely known." He leaned closer to the desk, running a hand over the blotter. A faint impression remained on the page. Words pressed by a heavy pen, though the sheet itself had been removed. He shaded the paper with pencil, coaxing the ghost of the words to life. "Meet me at the boathouse. Midnight." The room froze. "Good Lord," Daniels muttered. "That's not Henry's handwriting." Hale's eyes flicked to the cousin. No, this was someone else entirely. Pierce raised a brow. "Detective, you sound as though Charlotte herself obeyed this little summons." Hale's gaze was cold. "Her skiff is missing. Her shoe was left behind. And pearls from her necklace lay scattered like breadcrumbs. I'd say she went to meet someone, and never returned." Blackwood slammed a fist onto the desk. "Then who was it? Who dared draw her into the night?" From the hall came a quiet voice. "Perhaps I can answer that." All turned. A woman stood in the doorway, elegantly dressed, her hair pinned in dark waves, a fox fur stole draped around her shoulders. She carried herself with poise, yet her eyes glittered with something sharper than sorrow. The maid whispered her name, Miss Evelyn Grant. Hale knew the name too, a socialite often seen in newspapers, rumored companion of wealthy men, and, if gossip was to be trusted, a rival of Charlotte's. Evelyn entered with a rustle of silk. "Detective, forgive my intrusion. I was a guest here last night. Charlotte invited me. We shared a drink in this very room. And yes, that is my cigarette. I won't deny it." Blackwood's face darkened. "You? What business had you with her?" Evelyn's smile curved faintly, though her hands tightened on her stole. "Lady Hamilton and I had an understanding. We discussed matters of inheritance, of marriage. She confided things to me that perhaps she never told you, Henry." Pierce's expression sharpened, though he kept silent. Hale stepped closer. "And what of this note? Meet me at the boathouse, midnight. Was that written by you?" Evelyn's eyes flashed. "No, I left her at 11. She was alive, well, and very much herself. I know nothing of midnight meetings." "Yet you admit she was with you," Hale pressed. "And that you smoked in her study." "Yes," Evelyn said smoothly. "But I did not harm her. If you seek villains, detective, look closer to her own family." Her eyes flicked deliberately to Pierce. The cousin stiffened. "That's slander, madam." Hale raised a hand, still studying Evelyn. "Lady Hamilton had many connections. Enemies, too. But the truth of who lured her to that boathouse remains hidden, for now." As if on cue, the front door of the mansion slammed open. A deputy burst in, face pale from the night air. "Detective Hale, Sheriff, you'd best come quick. We've found something washed up on the far shore of the lake." The waters conceal many secrets. But when they choose to surrender one, the truth cuts deeper than any blade. Detective Hale and Sheriff Daniels hurried through the mist, boots crunching on the gravel path that curved toward the lake. The others followed at a tense distance, Pierce, Blackwood, even Evelyn Grant, her fox stole held tight against the night's chill. A lantern swung in the deputy's hand as he led them down to the shore. The lake glimmered, dark and restless, carrying the faint smell of damp reeds and iron. "There," the deputy said, pointing to the shallows. At first glance, Hale thought it was a body. But as the water lapped and shifted, the truth showed itself, not flesh but cloth. A woman's cloak, sodden and tangled in reeds, its velvet deepened to black by the water. Hale crouched, lifting it free. Pearls winked faintly from the clasp. Sheriff Daniels let out a low whistle. "That's hers. I've seen her wear it to church." Blackwood's jaw clenched. "Then she drowned. God help us." "Not so fast," Hale said, examining the fabric. He ran his fingers along the hem. Torn. A violent tear, as though caught, or pulled. And there, smeared faintly on the lining, a darker stain than lake water. Blood. The group recoiled. Evelyn's hand flew to her lips. "Detective," Daniel's voice dropped low, "this is turnin' ugly." Hale laid the cloak carefully on the grass. "It tells us she was attacked. Perhaps dragged toward the water. But it does not tell us by whom." He rose, scanning the shoreline. The reeds bent unnaturally in a path toward the old boathouse. The structure loomed like a skeleton against the moonlight, its roof sagging, its dock stretching out like a bony finger. "Sheriff, bring your lantern," Hale said. They moved toward the boathouse, the others trailing reluctantly. Every step on the creaking boards echoed. Inside, the smell of old tar and damp wood hung heavy. Hale swept the beam of his lantern across the floor. Scratches. Fresh ones, gouged deep into the planks near the water's edge, as though heels had dug in, resisting, struggling. Beside them, a single pearl gleamed. "Dragged from here," Hale murmured. "This is where she was taken." Pierce shifted uneasily. "But taken where, detective? Into the lake? Or into a boat?" Hale replied. "The skiff is missing, remember." Evelyn's voice trembled now, stripped of poise. "So someone spirited her away by water? But who would risk such madness?" Hale studied them all, his face hard in the lantern light. "That is the question. Each of you had reason to see her gone. Blackwood, for inheritance. Pierce, for his debts. And you, Miss Grant, rivalry can be as deadly as greed." Her eyes flared. "You dare accuse me?" "I accuse no one," Hale said evenly. "Not yet. But the lake does not lie. It keeps what is cast into it. And sooner or later, it gives everything back." As if to prove his words, a hollow sound echoed against the dock. The water shifted, carrying something heavy that bumped against the posts. Hale raised the lantern, leaning out. The beam caught it, a bundle of canvas, bound with rope. The deputy hauled it up with a boathook, dropping it onto the dock. Water poured off it, dark and foul. Hale cut the rope with his knife. The canvas fell open. Inside lay a small chest, brass fittings tarnished, the wood swollen from the water. Blackwood swore under his breath. Pierce paled. Evelyn's eyes glittered with sudden recognition or fear. Hale rested a hand on the lid. A chest cast into the lake. And worth hiding, by the look of it. He met the sheriff's eye. Whatever truth lies in here may be more dangerous than Charlotte's disappearance itself. With a grunt, he lifted the lid. The lantern light fell across stacks of documents, jewelry glinting, and, at the very top, a sealed envelope addressed in Charlotte Hamilton's hand. A voice from the missing, written in ink and desperation. Sometimes a letter speaks louder than the living. The lantern's glow flickered across the waterlogged chest as silence gripped the group. All eyes fixed on the sealed envelope, its paper swollen yet intact, Charlotte Hamilton's name written in a graceful hand across the front. Detective Hale broke the wax with a steady thumb. He unfolded the pages inside, their edges damp but the ink mercifully preserved. He read aloud, his voice cutting through the night air. "To whom it may concern, or perhaps, to the one who finally seeks the truth. I fear for my life. Father's death was not an accident, as the papers claim. Someone here knows it, someone profits by it, and now, I am watched, followed. If anything befalls me, know this. The estate is not what it seems. Beneath the boathouse, in the old cellar, lies proof. Do not trust appearances. My blood may pay the price of silence. The words trailed off, but their weight lingered. Evelyn gasped softly. Blackwood muttered a curse under his breath. Pierce's face drained of all color. Sheriff Daniels tugged at his hat brim. Well, I'll be damned. She knew she was in danger. And she left a trail, Hale said, folding the letter with care. Proof beneath the boathouse. That's where our path leads next. But as he turned, Evelyn Grant caught his arm. Her voice was sharp, almost pleading. Detective, you must see, a woman of her temperament, dramatic, excitable. Might this not be invention? A tale spun from grief? Hale studied her with cool eyes. Fear has a way of stripping drama down to its bones, Miss Grant. No, this is no fantasy. Charlotte Hamilton was silenced for a reason. The group trudged back toward the looming boathouse, lanterns casting long shadows. Hale found a hatch half hidden under rotting planks at the rear. The iron ring handle groaned as he pulled it up. A smell of damp stone and mildew wafted out. Deputy, fetch a second lantern, Hale ordered. We'll need light. One by one, they descended the narrow steps. The cellar stretched beneath the boathouse like a forgotten crypt. Stone walls slick with moisture, shelves lined with old crates and tools. At the far end, a heavy trunk sat covered in dust, as though undisturbed for years. Hale approached cautiously. The lock was broken, the lid slightly ajar. He pushed it open. Inside lay ledgers, thick and leather-bound. He flipped one open. Pages of numbers, accounts, transactions. But the amounts, staggering. Sheriff Daniels frowned. This ain't household bookkeeping. These are shipments, exports. Pierce licked his lips nervously. Timber, cotton, goods from the plantations. But, some of these years, the estate wasn't even active. How could there be shipments? Because they were a cover, Hale said grimly. Someone's been laundering fortunes through the Hamilton name. Fraud on a scale fit to ruin reputations, or buy silence. Blackwood swore again, louder this time. So that's why she vanished. She uncovered this. And whoever profits from it needed her gone. The lantern light swung across the stone wall, and Hale froze. Scratched into the mortar, faint but unmistakable, were letters carved by hand. Help me. Evelyn let out a strangled sound. Daniels crossed himself. She was here, Hale said softly. Alive. Imprisoned. As the realization settled, the silence broke, footsteps above. Heavy. Deliberate. Then the slam of the hatch closing. Darkness enveloped them. Detective, Pierce whispered, panic rising in his voice. We're locked in. Hale steadied the lantern, eyes narrowing as he drew his revolver. Then someone doesn't want us leaving with what we found. When the walls close in and the air grows tight, fear has a way of stripping men down to truth, or treachery. The slam of the hatch echoed like a coffin lid sealing. For a heartbeat, no one breathed. The damp air pressed against them, heavy with mildew and panic. Sheriff Daniels banged on the wooden trapdoor overhead. Hey, who's up there? Open it, blast you. His voice reverberated off the stone walls, but no answer came. Only the creak of retreating steps. Detective Hale's eyes narrowed in the dim lantern glow. Whoever closed us in knew we'd come here tonight. This wasn't chance. It was expectation. Pierce's voice quavered. Expectation? Then one of us must have. Careful, Mr. Pierce. Hale cut in, steady as ever. Accusations thrown in darkness can burn hotter than truth. The lantern flame sputtered, the air already thick. Evelyn pressed a handkerchief to her lips. We'll suffocate down here if we wait. Not if we think, Hale said. He crouched by the ledgers, flipping pages rapidly. Numbers, dates, shipments to names I recognize. Businessmen from Boston. Politicians in Albany. This is larger than one heiress. This is a net of corruption. Blackwood slammed a fist against the wall. I don't give a damn about ledgers. Where's Charlotte? What good are books if she's lost to the lake? Books tell motive, Hale replied coolly. Find the money, and you find the murderer. Daniels paced, sweat streaking his brow. Detective, the hatch won't budge. And the stone walls, well, we're boxed like sardines. Hale lifted the lantern, studying the walls. Then he found it, a draft. Faint, but present. The flame bent slightly in the current. Air, he murmured. There's a passage. These old estates always had them. Smugglers' tunnels, escape routes. Whoever held Charlotte down here may have used it. He pressed against the wall, fingers brushing over uneven stone. At last, a hollow sound. He drew his revolver, used the butt to knock loose a stone. Behind it, darkness yawned. A tunnel. The group crowded close, hope flickering. Ladies first? Blackwood muttered. Evelyn shot him a withering glare. Deputy, Hale ordered, go second. Sheriff, bring up the rear. If our jailer still lingers in these passages, I intend to meet him face on. They stepped into the narrow tunnel, single file, the lantern throwing long shadows ahead. The walls dripped with moisture, the floor uneven with age. Rats skittered. The tunnel twisted like a snake beneath the earth. Pierce stumbled, nearly falling. Hale caught him by the arm, steadying him. Easy. Fear feeds clumsiness. The passage opened into a larger chamber, a stone vault with rotting crates. But something else caught Hale's eye. A rope, frayed, tied loosely to an iron ring in the wall. At its end dangled a shred of pale fabric. A lady's gown. Charlotte, Blackwood whispered. His voice cracked. She was here. Before Hale could answer, a sound rose from deeper in the tunnel, footsteps. Slow. Approaching. Lantern light wavered as the group pressed together. Daniels drew his pistol, hand trembling. Evelyn gripped her pearls so tight they cut her skin. Pierce swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing in the dim glow. The steps grew louder, steady, unhurried. Whoever approached had no fear. And then a voice drifted through the darkness, smooth as silk, chilling as ice. You shouldn't have come this far. The lantern flame flickered violently, shadows leaping across the stone walls as the figure's outline appeared at the tunnel's mouth. Detective Hale raised his revolver, voice like iron. Step into the light, and let's see the face of Charlotte Hamilton's betrayer. When shadows yield to light, truth stands bare, and sometimes the face revealed is the last one you expect. The figure stepped forward, lantern light washing across his face. Gasps broke the silence. It was Mr. Pierce, the Hamilton family lawyer, though not the trembling, timid man they'd seen upstairs. His eyes were cold, his posture straight, his voice devoid of fear. But, Evelyn stammered, you were behind us. Pierce smiled thinly. Yes, Miss Grant. I doubled back. While the rest of you fumbled in the dark, I secured the exit. You see, this investigation has wandered too close to matters best left buried. Hale kept his revolver trained. So the ledger speaks true. You've been orchestrating the fraud through Hamilton's estate, and Charlotte found you out. Smart girl, Pierce admitted. Too smart. I intended only to frighten her into silence. But she wouldn't bend, so more permanent measures were required. Blackwood lunged forward, rage flashing. You murdered her. Careful, Pierce warned, pistol gleaming in his hand. She was stubborn, yes. But dead? Who can say? She had spirit. Last I saw, she was in this very passage, calling for help. Daniel's voice was hoarse. Blast you, Pierce. All those shipments, all that money, it was you bleeding the Hamilton fortune dry. Not only me, Pierce snapped. Powerful men stood behind me, men who will never allow the truth to surface. If you think you can drag me into the open, you'll find half the state against you. Hale's tone stayed calm, measured. You sound nervous for a man claiming such protection. Why trap us down here, if your allies are so strong? Pierce's mask slipped, fury rising. Because Charlotte left proof, more than the ledgers. She wrote to outside eyes. A letter. If it reaches the wrong hands, I'm finished. Hale's mind raced. Charlotte's letter, the one they found in the chest. Had Pierce seen them recover it? Did he know they carried it still? His coat pocket suddenly felt heavier. You'll hand over that paper, Pierce said, eyes narrowing, or none of you leave this tunnel alive. The tension snapped taut. Blackwood tensed, ready to strike. Daniels steadied his pistol. Evelyn pressed against the damp wall, eyes darting like a cornered bird. Then, from deeper in the tunnel, another sound broke through. A faint voice. Weak, trembling. Help me. Everyone froze. The voice again, clearer this time. A woman's voice. Please, help, Charlotte. Blackwood shouted, his restraint vanishing. In that instant of distraction, Hale acted. He swung the lantern forward, blinding Pierce's eyes with its sudden flare. The lawyer cried out, raising his arm. Hale lunged, knocking the pistol from his grip. The weapon clattered across the stone floor. Daniels pounced, pinning Pierce against the wall with brute force. Blackwood dashed toward the voice, vanishing into the deeper passage. Evelyn covered her mouth, tears springing to her eyes. Pierce struggled, spitting venom. "You'll regret this, Hale. You don't know the men you're crossing." "Perhaps not," Hale said coldly, snapping irons onto his wrists. "But I know this much. Charlotte Hamilton was never yours to silence." The tunnel echoed again with Charlotte's voice, faint but alive. "Here, down here?" Hale tightened his grip on Pierce and glanced toward Daniels. "Hold him. We're not finished." With lantern raised high, he followed the sound, the living proof that the mystery was not yet a murder. The tunnel curved sharply, and there, shackled to the wall with rusted chains, her face pale but her eyes fierce, sat Lady Charlotte Hamilton. When the missing is found, the mystery sharpens, for survival is only the beginning of truth. The lantern's glow fell across her face, pale as porcelain, her hair matted from damp and days of confinement. Lady Charlotte Hamilton blinked against the light, her lips trembling but her spirit unbroken. "Charlotte," Hale said gently, lowering his revolver. "You're safe now." Her voice cracked, but the words rang clear. "Detective Hale, I knew someone would come." He thought no one would dare. Behind them, Pierce snarled from where Daniels held him pinned. "She lies." She was hysterical. She locked herself here. Charlotte's eyes flared, steel beneath the frailty. "Locked myself? In chains?" She lifted her wrists, the iron biting into delicate skin. Blackwood stumbled forward, falling to his knees beside her. "Dearest, good Lord, I thought you gone forever." She recoiled slightly, as though the sight of him brought no comfort. "Henry, you knew I was in danger. Why didn't you return sooner?" The question hung heavy. Blackwood's face darkened, shame, or was it guilt, flickering across his features. "I was delayed in Albany. Business?" Hale's eyes lingered on him, but for now he turned back to Charlotte. With a swift motion, he struck the shackles with the butt of his revolver. The rust gave way, and the chains clattered to the stone floor. Charlotte gasped in freedom, rubbing her bruised wrists. "Thank you," she whispered. Then, voice rising, "Detective, you must know, Pierce isn't alone. My father's death, the estate's ruin, they all connect. He has partners. Men in the capital, men who—" Pierce bellowed, struggling in Daniel's grip. "Enough, girl. You think they'll let you live to speak their names? They'll silence you, and Hale with you. You've no idea of the storm you've stirred." Daniels shoved him harder against the wall. "Keep your poison tongue, or I'll see to it you eat stone." Charlotte staggered to her feet, Blackwood steadying her elbow. Yet Hale noticed the stiffness in her eyes, the guardedness toward her fiancé. Theirs was no joyous reunion. "Detective," she said firmly, "I wrote a second letter. A complete account of everything I discovered. It's hidden, not in the chest you found, but elsewhere. If we reach it before they do, we can tear down the whole rotten scaffold." Hale nodded. "Where?" Her lips parted, but before she could speak, a muffled boom echoed above. Dust sifted down from the tunnel ceiling. Evelyn gasped. "What was that?" Daniels barked. Charlotte's face went white. "They're sealing the boathouse. Destroying the passage. They mean to bury us alive." Hale steadied the group, voice firm. "We move. Now." They hurried down the twisting tunnel, Pierce dragged along in irons. The air grew tighter, smoke mingling with dust as timbers groaned overhead. The conspirators above had set fire to the boathouse, forcing the evidence and the witnesses to burn together. At last, a faint light glimmered ahead. A second exit, stone steps rising toward the forest beyond. Relief rippled through the group. But as they reached the stair, Pierce made his play. With sudden violence, he wrenched free from Daniel's grasp, shoving the sheriff hard against the wall. He bolted up the steps, chains clanging, desperation lending him speed. "Stop him!" Daniels roared, scrambling after. Hale raised his revolver, the sight fixed on Pierce's back, the lawyer who held the key to unraveling the whole conspiracy. One shot, and the chase would end here. But alive, Pierce could speak the names Charlotte had promised. Dead, their enemies would melt back into the shadows, untouchable. Charlotte's voice rang behind him. "Detective, don't let him escape." Hale's finger tightened on the trigger, caught between justice and necessity, as Pierce vanished into the night above. In the end, truth always finds its reflection, sometimes on water, sometimes in the eyes of the guilty. Pierce burst from the stone steps into the chill night air, chains jangling as he sprinted toward the shoreline. The flames of the burning boathouse roared behind him, their glow dancing across Willow Lake like a devil's lantern. Detective Hale emerged seconds later, revolver in hand, the rest of the group trailing, Daniels cursing under his breath, Blackwood supporting Charlotte, Evelyn pale as chalk. Pierce stumbled to the dock where the second skiff bobbed against its moorings. He hurled himself inside, seized the oars, and began rowing furiously toward the far shore. "Hale!" Daniels shouted. "We'll lose him." Hale's gaze narrowed. A single shot could fell the man, send him into the lake's cold embrace forever. But the detective lowered his revolver. "No. He talks before this ends." He leapt into the other skiff, Daniels jumping after him. They shoved off, the lake swallowing their oars with a hiss. The chase was silent but for the crack of fire behind them and the slap of water. Pierce rowed like a madman, his chains clattering, breath ragged. Daniels raised his pistol, but Hale held his arm. "Alive," Hale said grimly. "We need his names." The skiffs closed the gap. Hale's boat surged forward, striking Pierce's broadside with a splintering thud. The lawyer lurched, lost balance, and the revolver clattered from Hale's hand to the bottom of the boat. "End of the line, Pierce." Hale barked. Pierce drew a hidden blade, eyes wild. "You'll never drag me before a court. Better men than you have tried to cross my masters." He lunged, the knife flashing moonlight. Hale twisted, the blade slicing his coat but missing flesh. The boats rocked violently, water sloshing over the sides. With a swift punch, Hale struck Pierce across the jaw. The lawyer toppled backward, knife tumbling into the lake. Hale caught his collar just as he teetered over the edge. "You'll face justice," Hale said through clenched teeth. "Not escape." Daniels snapped irons over Pierce's wrists once more. The fight drained out of him at last, his head hanging low. By the time they rowed back, Charlotte stood at the shore, Evelyn clutching her arm, Blackwood at her side with a face carved from worry and guilt. Charlotte stepped forward, eyes blazing. "Pierce, you ruined my father, chained me like an animal, and sought to bury us all in silence. Now speak. Who stands behind you?" Pierce laughed bitterly, blood at the corner of his mouth. "You think they'll let me live to tell you? Names like senators, governors, men who shape the laws of this land. They'll bury me, and you with me." Hale's stare was cold as stone. "Perhaps. But tonight, the first thread is pulled. And a web this tangled cannot hold forever." Daniels hauled the defeated lawyer away, promising a guarded cell. The night grew quiet, save for the crackle of the dying boathouse fire. Charlotte, weary but unbroken, turned to Hale. "Detective, I owe you my life. But more than that, I owe you the truth. The second letter still waits. With it, the Hamilton name may yet stand clean." Hale tipped his hat. "Then we'll see to it. Darkness has a way of fearing the dawn." She smiled faintly, though her gaze drifted past Blackwood, distant and cold. The reunion was bittersweet, for love born of convenience cannot withstand betrayal. As the first light of dawn touched the lake, Hale looked out across the water. The fire's smoke curled upward, a signal that secrets had burned away, and justice, however fragile, had been set in motion. And so ends the case of the vanishing heiress. Chains broken, lies unearthed, and truth rising with the sun. Yet as Detective Hale well knew, justice is never simple, it is a battle waged in shadows, and the victor is the one who refuses to look away.